Joining us now, Alfredo Ortiz. He is the CEO and the president of the Job Creators Network. More information, go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. That's jobcreatorsnetwork.com. And he is joining us now. He just had an op-ed in The Hill, which he said Democratic moderates on the debate stage only fuel the conservative case against socialism. Alfredo, great to have you.
Hey, John, good morning. Thanks for having me again.
But let me, I loved your column because what you basically said is that the moderates on the debate stage in the last two nights here for the Democrats really put the socialist front and center, and we're making them explain some of their policies. I want you to expand on that, and if anybody wants to go to Alfredo's column in the Hill, just go to thehill.com, thehill.com. By the way, the Hill is the one source that I go to every day for real news, because it's the least biased journal you're going to get out there with the most information, and that's the Hill. I'm a fan of it, and so I'm glad you're in there. But fascinating analysis, Alfredo. You want to expand on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it was 2 days of truly popcorn eating type of conversation that we were watching. And I have to tell you, it's starting to get pretty fun because you're watching, basically a circular firing range happening there, where the moderates are starting to take on the socialists. The moderate Democrats are taking on the socialist Democrats, and you got to love it because, quite frankly, they're doing our work for us at this point. Just pointing out the lunacy and just the ridiculous nature of some of these proposals. I love Senator Bennett, for example. He said, about healthcare. He says, look, we need to be honest about this healthcare plan. It bans employer-based insurance and taxes the middle class to the tune of $30 trillion. He goes, do you know how much that is? That's 70% of what the government will collect in taxes over the next 10 years. I mean, you sit there and you listen to these guys, even the moderates are going, what are you guys talking about, right? And I mean, honestly, John, we couldn't write a better script for them.
No, you're right. I mean, that's why I loved your piece, because even if we were trying to do this, we wouldn't have been as effective. You look at John Delaney on, I guess that was Tuesday night,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Delaney says to Bernie Sanders, he says, I read your plan, and your plan says that all hospitals would have to take the Medicare payment amounts. Well, he said that's only 80% of the cost. And he said, I've talked to like 25, 30 hospital CEOs in rural areas. Every one of them told me that if your plan was implemented, that you just said you wrote, every one of these hospitals would go out of business. And he says,
Yeah.
oh, no, we'd save it because you do less paperwork. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's 80% of the cost. The paperwork's going to...
It's unbelievable. It's just so far from reality. I mean, even yesterday, you got to love this, and we put this in there as well. CNN commentator Zeke Emanuel, who is one of the key architects of Obamacare, he said Democrats just cannot convey the path forward on health care. I mean, it's just really unbelievable. I mean, just watching this, I love it, right? Because, I mean, for as much as we write and trying to inform the American public about it, nothing's better than having a stage that, you got 10 plus million people watching, and a stage where the moderate Democrats are basically saying these guys are so out of touch, the socialist Democrats. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I love it.
I mean, they exposed themselves over the last 2 days, and but what did you think about? I know some of the Obama Democrats were really going crazy over this. I mean, what did you think about the relentless attacks on the Obama administration and Obama's record? What did you think of that?
Well, obviously, I mean, they're trying to take out the front runner, right? I mean, Biden. I think if you remember, John, you asked me about a month or so ago. Remember who I thought was going to be the nominee? Look, I still think it's going to be Biden. I think everybody on that stage knows that Biden's the number one target. They got to take him out, right? And so I think that's exactly what you saw on stage. Because quite frankly, I mean, Biden's starting to almost look like a moderate, truly. Just because the Democrats have lurched so far to the left on every single policy, John, from healthcare to the economy. I mean, it's a total government takeover is basically what the socialist agenda is of every single aspect of our lives, and it's just ridiculous. That's why we've got our campaign, which is Socialism Takes, Capitalism Creates, because I think in those 4 words, that captures the essence of exactly what we're talking about and the binary nature of the decision that's going to happen in 2020.
Did you ever think, I just have to do an aside here for a second, Alfredo Ortiz with us, CEO and president of the Job Creators Network. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. But did you ever think it'd be on the radio in 2019, really having a serious debate about the country going in a socialist direction? I mean, did you ever really think that was even possible?
No, I mean, I didn't think it was even necessary that an American president would have to stand up at the State of the Union back as President Trump did at the beginning of the year, and I literally had to say we'll not become a socialist country. I mean, it is so opposite to everything that we believe in, John, and the way they've laid out these agendas. I mean, again, look, I'm all for it. I mean, the more of these debates that we can have, the better, because the American public is really, I think, in a very scary way, is getting a real understanding of what the socialist agenda looks like, and having these moderate Democrats trying to basically now start, attacking this agenda. It just shows just how crazy the left has gotten.
Well, the president has jawboned, and he was, he even yesterday when Jerome Powell finally did lower the rates by a quarter point, he said that's not enough. We have to go further. But I think let's see what happens. I think Powell got the message that really we need to that the increase he did is really what the issue is. So now we just have to get back to where he was. But Alfredo, the only concern that people have here, and I want you to address it, is that artificially keeping down interest rates, at some point you have to pay the piper, right? I mean, they have to go back up to equilibrium. We had quantitative easing for a long time. So if we continue to get reductions, when does that equilibrium happen?
Well, John, remember that there are 2 levers really that he had been pulling simultaneously, and that was also our issue last year, is that, it was the balance sheet issue along with the interest rate increases, right? So, he was buying back, from that perspective, trying to thin out the balance sheet, and that was probably one of the biggest issues there in terms of challenges with the economy. Is it was double whammy. So what I'm thinking, because you've got the long-term interest rates versus the short-term, and obviously the Fed rate increases or decreases affect the shorter term versus the bond buybacks, which is on the longer term. So from our perspective, I think they can still look at deleveraging the balance sheet, but make sure that the interest rates come down, because we do need these rates to be lower so that small business owners in particular, for example, can continue to invest in their businesses, hire more people, spend more in terms of CapEx. We do have some trade uncertainty, John, that right now, look, we support the president and what he's doing in terms of negotiations with China and playing hardball with them, because we have intellectual property theft that's happening left and right, and that has to stop, right? I mean, that impacts national security along with everything else of our economy in our country, and so that is the right thing to do. But that uncertainty is keeping some of the capital expenditures that we need in our economy to grow. It's keeping it somewhat at bay. So we do need to address that. So I think having the lower interest rates will help. Will continue to incent companies to borrow, to invest in their businesses. The one thing I'm a little concerned about, John, and if we can spend a couple seconds on that, is quite frankly the growing debt. The latest 2-year spending bill, it looks like, is going to add almost $2 trillion to the debt, and in about $22 trillion. I mean, look. Some debt is good. I mean, you're in business. I've been in business by myself. We know that we had to borrow to grow, and so some debt is actually not a bad thing. It's managing that debt, I think, is that you and I as business owners have always had to manage and know how to do. And one of the things that we'd like to start seeing, and we're going to start advocating, John, just so you know, is a budget amendment that looks at debt to GDP ratios, so that we can really start managing and living within our means.
Alfredo Ortiz with the Job Creators Network, President and CEO. I might have to hold you over for another couple of minutes after Bottom of the Hour News so we can we can explore that, because I love that idea that debt to GDP ratio. You're never going to get a balanced budget amendment. The federal government can't operate that way, so you can forget that. But at least that's a touch point, because we keep asking the question to politicians, Alfredo, and I've had 50 senators on my show and 100 congressmen over the years, and I've asked them this one question: what's the number? What's the number that's going to keep you up at night? Obviously, it was not 8 trillion when I started asking it. It's not 16 trillion when Obama was there. It's not 20 trillion, and now it's not 22 trillion. But there's got to be a number, right? There's got to be a debt number that's like, this is bad, right? We don't know what that debt number is. But if you go to your constitutional amendment, because most senators, Tim Kaine, for instance, has told me, well, the debt really, the number doesn't matter. It's the percent to gross domestic product that matters. So if you had an amendment that tied it to that, that would be interesting. Can you stay with us a couple more minutes? I want to delve into that. Plus, part of your piece that I couldn't get to, I want to talk about, is the amount of money per household the Green New Deal is going to cost every American. That was also brought out in the debate. Can you hang with us a couple more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely, John.
All right, John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. Stay with us. Alfredo Ortiz coming back.